If guides give you direction, allies give you momentum because they understand your journey in real time. They know what the hard days feel like, and they can keep you moving when your motivation dips. Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here for episode number 50 of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm a productivity coach. I'm your host. And man, I am so glad you're here for this episode. What a milestone episode. Episode 50. This is amazing to think how far this show has come. Thank you to you for listening. We're almost a month away from a full year of this show, and that's really exciting. And like I said, this is just because you listen, you watch, you are here each and every week. And so I'm so grateful for that. Hey, if you were here a year ago when we launched and you're still here, definitely take a minute right now, well, when the show is over, and review the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. That lets people know why you keep coming back each and every week. And if you're new, if this is one of the first episodes you've listened to, or you've only listened to a handful so far, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. That really helps me get the word out there about the podcast. And you can always go back and listen to the other ones or watch them on YouTube. Now, today is the last episode on my 3-part series on building a team that can support you on your goal journey. And this has been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've definitely had fun talking about this and bringing it to you. But in episode 1, we looked at why teams are such an important part of your goal journey. We looked at what roles you need on your team to help you as you find success. And we looked at 3 specific relationships that you need to invest in to help you on this journey, right? And the first one is the guide. This is a person who's ahead of you. The second one is an ally, the person that is beside you, that's taking that journey alongside with you. And the third is an apprentice, person that hasn't quite gotten as far as you have yet. Now, in episode 2, we took a little bit closer look at that guide relationship. This is such a critical part of your team and a relationship that you can have. And you'll potentially be on both sides of this relationship as a guide and as an apprentice. So we demystified some of the myths around a guide or a mentor. We talked about where you can find a guide, how to approach them, and how to make the most out of the relationship. Now, today we're going to wrap up this series and look at the relationships between an ally and an apprentice. Now, these relationships are all about growing together and giving back. And when combined with a guide, they just really help you round out your team. Now, before we dive into this episode, I just want to be clear, you don't have to have listened to episodes 1 and 2 to understand what we're talking about today. But of course, hopefully you'll go back and listen to those at some point. But today we're going to start off looking at the ally relationship. Remember, this is someone who is at the same level as you in their goal journey. They don't have to be on the same journey as you, but it helps if your journeys are similar. This is a peer, someone who can be an entrepreneur in another industry, or someone who's pursuing a different type of fitness goal than you are, or someone that's building something unrelated. But, the connection point is that you have the same discipline or growth mindset or consistency, and ambition. Remember, similarity in effort matters more than similarity in outcome. And so you want to align yourself with somebody who's not just at the same point, but also has the same philosophy and belief about setting big goals. The idea is that you want to be able to share notes with your ally and have similar milestones that are relatable. It's about the shared struggles and successes. And that's a huge component of accountability as well. And finding purpose through helping others. If guides give you direction, allies give you momentum because they understand your journey in real time. They know what the hard days feel like, and they can keep you moving when your motivation dips. Now, in addition to the potential for sharing tactical information like what's the best service for registering URLs or what their pre-race diet looks like, allies provide a lot of psychological benefits as well. Somehow sharing struggles makes it feel a little bit lighter. And when you win and celebrate that together, it just feels a little bit bigger. Progress begins to feel more normal when you have an ally by your side. And one of the best things that allies can do for us is offering accountability without pressure. Whether it's acknowledged or below the surface, allies help each other stay consistent. They can notice, maybe more than anybody else, when you disappear, and they can check in without judgment because it's not about policing each other. It's about not drifting off alone. So what does this look like when you build a relationship and bring an ally onto your team? Well, it's probably going to be different in every situation. For my friends who are runners, we often talk about our training, what races we have coming up, and we compare notes on our long runs. These aren't formal accountability sessions. It's, around the water cooler at work. But there's been more than one time when somebody has said in this group, "Hey, I haven't seen you posting on Strava recently. Are you dealing with an injury? What's going on? Anything I can do to help you get back out there?" The other side of this same coin is allies can provide some friendly competition that keeps you both moving forward. Who got the most likes on their latest TikTok or reel? Who scored more clients last month? Who did the longest run? Or even better yet, who stayed more consistent? This healthy competition can create energy and momentum and a sense of movement. But I want to stress this because this is critical. You should only use this strategy of healthy competition if you can keep from comparing yourself with your ally. Remember, comparison is the thief of joy. As we've talked about before, you should always be comparing your results to your own progress rather than somebody else's. You always want to see how far you've come rather than how far you have to go to reach a goal. We talked about that in the episode on the gap and the gain, and I'll put a link in the show notes if you missed that episode. This is one of the reasons why I love the holistic productivity community on Skool. It's bringing together people from all around the world who are working on achieving their goals. And it's a platform where all of us can connect and share our progress and our struggles with each other. And since everybody's on a goal journey, it's the perfect way to find an ally that you can grow with. You can share those struggles. Can share those successes. In fact, we have a part of our discussion board is talking about the wins that you've had recently. And it doesn't get used enough. I think people are probably shy about using that, but I think it's a fantastic way to encourage each other as we see wins happening in the community. I'd love to have you check out the Holistic Productivity Community on Skool. I'll put a link in the show notes, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free, but it's just a great way to find an ally, to find somebody who can keep you motivated, who can keep you focused. A lot of great resources as well. So make sure you check that out. So now that we've looked at the ally relationship, let's touch on a couple of things about the apprentice relationship. This type of relationship is probably the least talked about, but it is incredibly powerful. Here's why helping someone else matters. When someone looks to you for guidance, you take your own growth more seriously so you can show up for them. You reflect more on what you've learned, which helps cement those principles in your own life so that you can use them again. Oftentimes, if we're not pausing and reflecting and just going on to the next goal, we can miss some valuable lessons that we've already learned, either through failure or through success or just kind of wrestling with an issue. Having an apprentice that you have to share what helped you get through this process or this challenge really makes you reflect and go back and look at some of that, and you can get some great insight by doing that. You also gain confidence and develop a sense of purpose when you help others. I think there are two big hesitations that people feel when they think about being a guide and having an apprentice that's talking with them and looking up to them. First is, I won't have enough time. And second is probably, I'm not far enough along in my own journey. But we've already debunked those myths in episode number 2. The guide relationship shouldn't require hours and hours of commitment. We didn't ask that of our guide, and so our apprentice shouldn't ask that of you either. And if they do, it's perfectly fine to set limits and boundaries, maybe even do that ahead of time. Yeah, I can help you, but this is what that looks like. You don't have to give your apprentice your cell phone number if you're worried that they're going to be hitting you up all hours of the day and night. That doesn't have to happen. And this idea that you're not far enough along, we said you only have to be a few steps ahead of someone to help them through a challenge. You're not presenting yourself as an expert. You're simply sharing what you've learned so far with someone who hasn't learned what you know. Before I got into running, I loved hiking, and I still do. I don't get to do enough of it anymore because I've hiked all of the sections of the Appalachian Trail that are close to my house. It just gets to be this logistical challenge to try to find new sections that I haven't hiked. But one of the things that hikers like to do when they meet each other on the trail going opposite directions is to ask each other, what's the trail like? What am I going to encounter on this next section of trail? What's it like? It's a lot easier for me to describe to another hiker a section of a trail that I just hiked than it is for me to describe a stretch of trail that I hiked yesterday or hours ago. There are turns and features that I've probably forgotten about unless I just walked down that part of the trail. And the longer it's been since I've walked the trail, the more likely that the situations may have changed. A tree could have fallen or a water supply could have dried up. You know, an entrepreneur who found success 10 years ago faced a whole different set of circumstances than an entrepreneur today. The climate and the landscape have completely changed as we deal with the economy and coming out of the pandemic and all of those things. That has changed the landscape for businesses and entrepreneurs alike. Someone who found success a year ago, though, will make a much better guide. And so that is, by definition, somebody who is just a couple of steps ahead of you. Now, what are the responsibilities of being a guide? What do you need to do if you want to be a guide? Well, a good guide should encourage without controlling. You have to realize that your apprentice may not take all of your advice, and that's okay. Some of it will work for them. Some of it may not adapt very well to their industry or their situation. You need to share honestly and own your mistakes. There's no room for pride or ego in a guide relationship. You have to be vulnerable so that your apprentice can see your struggles and learn from them. You can't really teach them what you learned through the struggles and the challenges if you don't really want to admit that they happened, right? You also have to point people forward, not towards yourself. What do I mean by that? Well, the goal of a guide is for your apprentice to not need you anymore. Remember, you're not going to be this person's guide for the rest of their life. You're here to help them during a season, but you don't want them to become dependent on you and your advice. You want them to keep moving forward, and eventually they can move on to find another guide that can help them with their next challenge. Now, just a note of caution. Yes, you want to have an apprentice, but they need to approach you and ask you to be your guide. You shouldn't just go out and say, "Hey, can I mentor you?" Not that there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but if you do that, you're more of a consultant to them rather than a guide. And there's a little bit of a difference there. I think there's some subtleties there that are really important to watch and maintain. I go out and pitch people, to be their productivity coach, but that's going to be a paid relationship. It's not bad, but it's different than the relationship between a guide and an apprentice, because you're both on each other's team and you're helping each other, and there is mutual benefit that's happening there. It's different than that paid relationship with a coach. Are you starting to see how this framework of a guide and an ally and an apprentice work together? We could go so much deeper on each one of these, but I hope this quick overview in this series has been helpful. And I'd love to have you share in the comments on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on, one thing that really resonated with you, maybe from this episode or a previous episode. Maybe it's something that you didn't agree with or you had a different take on. That's okay too. I'm confident enough to hear the things that you don't really agree with, but hit me up in the comments. Healthy growth happens when you are looking up and working with a guide, looking across to an ally who's on their own journey, and looking down to help an apprentice that's also on the path that you've just covered. And when you're active with all three of these relationships, you stay humble, you stay motivated, and you stay grounded. And that's the best thing. You're not just building a support system for yourself. In each relationship, you are part of someone else's support system as well. And that's how growth multiplies and success spreads. And it's just such a beautiful thing when that happens. And I hope, if you don't have it, that this series has inspired you to go out and find a guide, an ally, and an apprentice. So let's recap what we talked about today. An ally is someone who's at the same level as you in their goal journey. An ally doesn't have to be in the same industry or even chasing the same goal, but you want to look for someone who shares your discipline and your ambition rather than someone who has the same results. You understand the challenges that each other is facing, and you can help each other stay consistent during those challenges. An ally can provide some healthy competition, but only if you are focused on your own progress. Don't compare your growth with theirs. The other relationship you need is an apprentice, someone who sees you as a person who can guide them because they're just a few steps behind you on the same path or a similar path. Being a guide will not only help your apprentice, but it will also help you as well. Without an apprentice, it's easy to miss out on the lessons our journey can teach us. But having an apprentice makes us more reflective, which will help us grow as well. Don't worry if you feel like you're not ready to be a guide. You're simply sharing the lessons that you've learned. And the goal is to help your apprentice through this challenge or season in their life so they don't need you anymore. Guides have to be honest about their mistakes and willing to encourage their apprentice to go farther than they did and to skip over all of those challenges. And when you put it all together, a guide, an ally, and an apprentice, you have this amazing framework of support that can help you find success on your goal journey. That's why it's so exciting for me to share this with you and why I wanted to do it as a 3-part series, not just one episode. And so I hope that you have listened to all of these. If not, again, go back and find those links in the show notes. Well, that's it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here, for celebrating episode 50 with me. You can check out the show notes, holisticproductivity.com/50. I'll have links for all the other episodes in this series and anything else that we talked about in this episode as well. Be sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube so that you can get the next episode when it drops on Tuesday. It's going to be a great episode. We're moving on from this series, but I know that you want to be back here for that. Again, I'd love to get you to review the podcast. I love seeing 5 stars, but just take a minute. I'd be honored to hear your thoughts on the show, good, bad, or otherwise. Want to make this as best as possible. Be sure to follow at Wholistic Productivity on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack, all the socials. And there's a lot of great productivity tips and motivation there throughout the week as well. And I mentioned it before, but join the Holistic Productivity community on Skool. Link for that will be in the show notes as well. Again, thank you so much for listening. I talk about it all the time, but my goal, the reason that I do the show, the reason that I'm excited that you're showing up is because I am here to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I'm excited to see what that means for you and your goals. So we'll see you next time. Until then, take care.